Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome once again to the weekly live webinar presented by Affinity Federal Credit Union. My name is Oscar Cordova, and I'm the External Affairs Department specialist here at Affinity in charge of the financial education efforts of the credit union for the locations and areas that we serve. Today's topic is going to be avoiding electronic bank fraud. Great topic to learn from, so we can actually get acquainted of what's going on right now in regards of fraud and avoid becoming a victim of it. Our presenter today is Ms. Veronica Hernandez. Veronica works with our fraud and risk department. So she is a subject matter expert in the topic. I highly encourage everybody to ask questions. That's why Veronica is here. And if you happen to come across a question that you guys want to ask throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A option on your panel, and Veronica will be more than happy to address it at the end of the webinar. Also, the webinar is being recorded, and an email will be shared later this afternoon with all of you with the link to rewatch the recording if you want to, in case you missed anything or you want to share with friends and family. With that said, I'll turn it over to Veronica. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to present this topic. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Oscar. And thank you everyone for attending today. Again, my name is Veronica Hernandez. I work in risk operations at Affinity Federal Credit Union as the loss prevention supervisor. I am happy to be here to discuss these topics. Unfortunately, we're seeing it happen more and more often. And so anything that we can do to empower our members on how to safeguard their accounts and their information, and of course, prevent from becoming a victim of electronic bank fraud is certainly what we'd want to get out there for everyone to know more about. Just some background about myself. I've been with the credit union for over 6 years, and I certainly enjoy speaking with members about this. And I know that when this gets sent out, my communication information will be provided as well. So please don't hesitate in reaching out. Anything we can do to better assist and educate. So let's get started. Before we get into the topic at hand, I certainly want to just advise everyone that this information is for informational purposes only and is intended to provide general guidance and does not constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. Each person's circumstances are different and may not apply to the specific information provided. You should seek the advice of a financial professional, tax consultant, and/or legal counsel to discuss your specific needs before making any financial or other commitments regarding the matters related to your condition are made. Affinity is not an affiliate, nor do they endorse or recommend any of the referenced apps or companies and/or their products or services. Accordingly, Affinity takes no responsibility for the quality, reliability of the products or services offered by these apps or companies. So a nice quote to keep in mind: any informed borrower is simply less vulnerable to fraud and abuse. That's important to remember because even though you may be aware of what's happening, what the scams, what the methods that are being used by fraudsters to perform fraud with your accounts, with your funds, with your information, sometimes it's inevitable. But really, the best safeguard again is to know more, to try and prevent it. If it's preventable, we want that to be the case. So threats, where are they coming from? Well, they're being presented through phone calls, through emails, through text messages. And nowadays, that's really the primary methods of communication that we have, that we share with coworkers, friends, and family. And as a result of that, we do put a sense of comfort or reliability on those types of communications. But it's important to remember that we can't always assume that every interaction is legitimate. Is the phone call really coming from a merchant that you are comfortable and familiar with? Is the email really coming from you as a member or a subscriber? Is it meant for you from that merchant, or is it coming from a third party? And are those text messages really coming from those companies or from that individual? Are they valid? And many times those phone calls, those emails or text messages will give you a message or information that you'll want to react to. Maybe you're due for a refund, and who doesn't like a refund? Maybe it's a subscription that's going to be renewed, but you don't want it to be renewed. Maybe it's something you canceled a while ago, or maybe you don't even remember signing up for it and you want to act on it. You want to act on that refund, stop that subscription, or stop that charge. If someone's contacting you through phone, email, or text message, be wary. Make sure you know who you're talking to. And if they ever mention any sort of need to have access to your computer, to your cell phone device by downloading a third party application, stop. Companies have methods of being able to provide you that refund or instructions on how to submit a request to cancel a subscription or dispute a charge. That does not involve giving access to your device, your accounts, and all the sensitive information that you may have on those devices. Remember, stop. Do you really know who you're giving access to? To go further into detail on how to flag those threats when it could be possible that a fraudster is trying to perform or initiate a scam with your information. Remember that when you get a phone call, just because your cell phone recognizes it or says it's, as an example, Amazon calling, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's Amazon or a representative of Amazon contacting you. It's possible that the phone number is being affiliated to that company through what's referred to as spoofing. So it appears that the call is coming from that company, but it may not be them. Maybe they ask, there's fraud on your account, and so they need to be in touch with your financial institution. And they'll be patching you over to whoever or whatever organization that is. Remember, you don't know who they're transferring you to unless you're the one dialing it directly. So even though you may think that you're reaching out to a different department in the company or maybe your financial institution, you can only know for certain if you make the call yourself, if you reach out yourself. And remember, if they provide you a phone number to call back to, make sure you're validating the phone number. That is, if you have, for instance, a monthly statement available, the contact information should be on that document. If you go on to the website for the merchant, the advertised number on their website is more reliable than one that's provided to you from a phone call and from someone you don't know who's on the other side. Now, what about emails? We have our inboxes that are overwhelmed with messages from companies and from merchants, and we try and do our due diligence to go through them. But remember that not every message is actually coming from who it says it is. Maybe you're getting a notice because you're going to be charged. Maybe there's fraud on your account and they're looking to verify the transactions. Maybe you're entitled to a refund. Remember to stop. Make sure that you're not clicking on any links before you validate who is actually sending you that information. Make sure that the emails on them, on the information that's coming through, it might say that it's coming from, again, using the same example, Amazon. If you hover over where it says Amazon, it will show you the email address it's being sent, where it's being sent from. Now, if it's coming from maybe at Amazon.com, it's a little bit more reliable. But if it's coming from, John Smith at gmail.com, then it's probably not a message that's actually coming from Amazon directly. Instead, it's someone that's posing as Amazon, and it's really a private email. Make sure that just because the email contains a phone number, you don't automatically contact that phone number. Just like with the initial telephone calls that you may be receiving, make sure you're validating that phone number. Maybe you need to visit their website and see the advertised number. Maybe you have other documentation if you do have a relationship with those merchants, and you can confirm what phone number you should be contacting. Aside from hovering over, remember to note that emails, many times, especially if they are authentic, will include your information. So it'll be Dear John Smith and not Dear Customer. Generic emails are a sign that they're just being sent out to emails in general and not specifically to you, and may be a sign that it's not a valid email. It's not authentic. What about text messages? It's commonplace nowadays. We have them going back and forth between friends and family, but remember that you don't know who's sending those either. Many times, not always, but many times, text messages from merchants come through as a short code message. Now, what does that mean? Many times those messages will come from a 5 to 6 digit number and not a full phone number. Make sure that you're not clicking on any links unless you're certain on where that message is coming from. And if the text message contains a phone number, just like with telephone and email, don't assume that that information is valid. Make sure that you're validating with what you have and what you search through as it being a valid phone number. Because many times, if you reach out to them, they may state that they're a merchant or an individual, but they may just be posing as them. So, how can you protect yourself from that? Make sure to validate before moving forward. And what are the scams that we're hearing from frequently? What are we hearing from individuals that have fallen victim to this? Again, they are usually reaching out to you, posing as merchants that you feel comfortable with, that you know, that you recognize, that you have a long-term relationship with. That could be Amazon Prime, it could be Best Buy, it could be Geek Squad, it could be a form of, such as Norton virus, for instance, that's installed on your device. Companies or organizations that you feel comfortable, that you recognize. The problem is that they specifically manipulate the conversation to make you feel comfortable, to make you feel as if there's an urgency or a need to move forward or assist them in whatever that they're requesting of you, whether it be downloading an application for them to view your screen or your device. Maybe if you don't act now, you're going to be charged. Maybe there's a fraudulent transaction that, unless you do this, it's going to go through. Or maybe it's a refund. And again, who wouldn't want a refund? But remember that if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Many times with methods like offering you a refund, you'll want to take advantage of it. But remember that these merchants have the ability to send you a check or credit your account or any method of, whether it's a card or account information that they have on file to refund you. There's no need to give them access to accounts, to your device, or to your personal information. And again, just reiterating what we've talked about, don't download a third-party access for your PC, your tablet, your cell phone. There's no reason to give that access because not only will your screen be available or vulnerable, but maybe the information that's on your device as well. You shouldn't need to sign into your accounts when a third party is viewing your screen. Remember that even though they may be saying that they're trying to help you in completing something or crediting you or stopping something such as fraud, they don't need to see your credentials to do that. And unfortunately, there's that risk that even after you've logged in, that they might try on their end. Never give anyone banking credentials for any reason. Those are for you and you alone. And remember that once you give the keys to the house, they have access to everything inside. Not only the funds, but be able to request, send funds out, initiate applications. It's that convenience of having everything available to you, but you only want it to be available to you. It's imperative to remember that. And be aware if you ever get calls or text messages asking for access or to validate accessing your accounts, if it's not you, reach out. That might be someone trying to get into your information, or if they're on the computer or device with you at the moment, that might be the code that they need to go in. and be able to access your accounts and your funds and your information. And never authorize a device from a non-account owner. That is, maybe you're logging in from a friend's computer or a friend's phone, but make sure never to leave it recognized, because that'll mean that someone else could try and log in with your credentials later on without having to have that second verification, because it'll be a recognized device. So you want to be sure that you're logging in from secure locations, from your personal devices, and if you are logging in from devices belonging to someone else, that you're not leaving the device as a recognized device, so that the verification call or text will always have to go out. If something happens, if you do fall victim to something like this, or you feel like it's just not sounding right, it's not feeling right, trust your gut. You, especially if you've reached out, using ourselves as an example, you know the type of service that we offer, maybe questions or the routine to be able to get assistance. But if it doesn't sound right, stop. Reach out to us and we can better assist. Just because someone's telling you that something's happening doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And the best way to validate that and, get assistance on what to do next is by reaching out to us directly. But if you do fall victim, we do recommend making a report to ic3.gov. That is a communication or complaint that goes to the FBI. And unfortunately, because the volume of electronic banking fraud has increased so much, it's important to make sure that you're reporting it if you are a victim of it. Hopefully there's additional preventions that will be in place to help protect our members and, you know, financial institutions across the board from this happening to their members or customers. But until then, reporting if it does happen is imperative to try and make sure we can stop, and whatever similarities there are, we make sure that those stop and that we get the information out there. So thank you everyone for your time. I see that there's some questions, so let's see how we can better assist.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Veronica, for such great a presentation. At this point, I would like to open up the floor for anyone that may have a question. Now is the time to ask it. Yes, there are a couple of questions right now. So I'll start with the first one. It says here, how can I stop a 5-digit number text? I get them every day and just void them without looking at them, or can I block them?
That's a great question. And that's actually something that I experience myself. What I normally do is with my service provider, there's a way that you can select to block them from coming through. I know that if you speak directly with your service provider, you could block short code messages altogether, but you might have to reach out to them, or they can walk you through on how to do or set up those settings on your phone. But I know that it's something that normally you have to reach out to your service provider to do that.
Great, excellent. Next question. It says here, if I call the company myself and they ask to access my device, can I give them access?
I think that's going to be on a situation to situation, to answer that question. If you're reaching out and you have that trust or confidence, it's best if you feel comfortable and you know that you're reaching out to the right company or organization, you're going through already verification methods. You're making sure you're calling the right phone number. You're speaking to someone from that company. And depending on what it is that you're asking them, to do, maybe they're helping you navigate something. That's okay. But that usually doesn't involve having to provide, your credentials or anything along those lines. And that's the big thing to remember. You shouldn't have to provide sensitive information. In fact, half of the time they usually already have that available to them, at least, a username, not necessarily a password. So you don't have to provide it. And unfortunately for the scams or the fraudsters, they're usually asking you for that information. But I think that make sure that you know who you're dealing with. That's the best answer I can give. If you're calling the correct phone number, you've validated with them, it's something that they advertise, that they maybe can navigate with you. Co-browse is sometimes a phrase that they use. Then, if you feel comfortable, then, move forward. But again, it doesn't require you to give sensitive information.
That is absolutely true. Sometimes if you, for example, you're calling your financial institution and they're asking you for information that they should have, that should raise a red flag. And also, and you can always, for peace of mind, you can always ask for their employee name and employee ID. They should be able to provide that as well. Great, excellent. So next question, what about the transfer money merchant who call to verify your account when you're trying to send money transfer?
You mean if a merchant reaches out to confirm your account information or
Correct.
with the financial institution?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's settings or procedures that are set up for that type of inquiry with merchants. So it's very limited to what you can ask. So it's never something that's provided to them. It's something that they have and they're asking for confirmation on. It's not going to be, well, what's your full account information? They're going to be the ones to provide it, and it's very limited what they can verify. Usually, it's maybe just your name and your address, which they have to provide, and all that can be stated is that's correct, or no, that doesn't match.
Excellent, very good. Next question, how can I add phone verification step when I access my Affinity account via the app?
That's great. So it's actually something that you can set up as long as you have the application. If you log in, you can just go to My Settings. And then once you go, well, let me back up a little bit. If you're looking at your app right now, you'll be able to click, I believe it's More at the bottom right. And then at the very top, you should see something like a little gear. And then My Settings should be an option for you. And there you're going to see what phone numbers are set up to get that verification. And you can actually select if you want it to be a phone call or a text message. As long as you don't save your credentials on that application, then it's going, and you don't register it once you get that code or that phone call, then it's going to prompt that call or text message every time you log in.
Fantastic, very good. Next question, can someone false get into an app? I use apps to check balances, Affinity, I guess Affinity app and other order. Are they safe?
So you use
So,
other, just to clarify, it's applications that you use to check your balances or the most
right,
recent activity.
correct.
Well, it goes back to your relationship, right? You know, many times there's organizations that will reach out to you, pose as, well, fraudsters will reach out to you and pose as those companies that you know and trust. But if you are the one that has that relationship and you are using their application, you know, you can check that information. That's what it's meant to do. It's for that convenience and that 24/7 access to your accounts. But if you're referring to maybe a third party that you can authorize to pull that information, um, I would say, you know, do some research on them. There are certain organizations that maybe are newer, that have newer technology or newer services. You know, read up on what they're doing to protect their customers or members. What they may be doing may be different from what financial institutions are doing. You know, do they have a second method of verification? Can you just automatically log in? What does it take to read this information? How is this shared? You know, it's those types of things. Before giving access to your accounts, you want to make sure that you know enough about that company or that app and what they're doing to protect your information once they have access to it. I think that would be the best bet. Read up on it. Make sure that you know and you feel comfortable with what they're doing. And if so, then, you know, it's something that you can use. Certainly, we know technology is our friend in a lot of ways. So that might be how you can keep an eye on all of your accounts. But if you don't feel comfortable or it doesn't look like they're really doing too much, maybe it's about finding something else, you know, that may be available to you to use to do that.
Very good. A follow-up comment from that same member. It says,
Sure.
no, just the Affinity app, not an Amazon.
Okay, so is it good to check your balances on the application, sure. But of course, with everything, it's just making sure that, once you have that application, that it's secure. So as a previous member had mentioned, how do you get a phone call or a text message before using that application? Maybe it's something you want to leave instead of remembering your device so that you get a call or text anytime you access it. This will prevent anyone else from being able to access it when it's not you or if you're not authorizing it.
Yeah, very good ideas. I've used that feature as well. And it works and it gives you peace of mind because you know that the only person who can access that app, it's you. There's a second step in order to grant access to your account. So I've used it before and I vouch for it.
Sure, a few seconds more for validation, but that extra peace of mind.
Mhm. Very good. At this point, I do not see any more questions this afternoon. I would like to just remind everybody of be on the lookout for my email, my follow-up email, thanking you for attending and the link. I will also going to include Veronica's contact information in case you guys have any other questions that may not have thought about them now, but perhaps they come to you after the webinar has ended and you guys want to ask it. So I'll include her information in the email, as well as other resources where you guys can read up on and get more information and more educated on the latest frauds out there and how to avoid becoming victims of them. Okay. With that said, I would like to bring this webinar to a close. Once again, I would like to thank everybody for attending. Next week's webinar is going to be on annuities and retirement. So if you guys are getting there or would like to get more information about that, I highly encourage everybody to sign up for next week's. I will also include the link to register for that webinar as well. Okay, so with that said, I want to wish everybody a happy afternoon. Any parting words, Veronica?
Thank you, and everyone, be vigilant and remember, if all else fails, stop and, before moving forward with anything else. That's all.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and you guys have a great afternoon. Bye-bye, everyone.